Over the past 12 months, I made over 100% return on my Bitcoin. Here's exactly how I did it. So you can kind of replicate what it's doing again. It's not going to be as explosive. I don't think Bitcoin has another 100% return in this cycle, but I basically turned about $8,400 into a little over $16,000 in 12 months, doing literally nothing except buying Bitcoin and then doing nothing else, just not selling it. And so this is how I did it. I didn't even really know I was doing it at the time. I got a little bit lucky on my buy time. And well, I mean, I knew the market was going up, but I got a little bit lucky on buying in the cup and handle. But as I reassess what I did so well back then, this is what I'm telling you I did now, based on what I've learned over technical analysis, stage analysis, and using charts the correct way over the last couple of months. This is exactly how I would tell you to replicate it. And when you can look for, you can do this on the Bitcoin chart, you can do this on the Ethereum chart, you can do it on the Cardano chart, in order to find the best place for you to buy any of these assets, right? You can do it in stocks. I do it in stocks as well. I have a small stock portfolio I do this with. And so let me just show you exactly what happened and how you can replicate it to make your own gains. And at the end, I'll toss in where I think Bitcoin can go this cycle, so you can know kind of when to target to get out, or at least where I'm going to target to get out of this position. Spoiler alert, it's around $135,000, I think. Okay. Before I get too far into it, I also want to tell you that in the description of this video is the Crypto 100x Blueprint. If you like what you hear in this video, you want to make some money in crypto, join us there. We talk a lot about how you can read the charts, how you can do better, how you can learn as much as possible in order to just have as much success. It's basically a conglomerate of all the information I wish I had when I started in crypto and stocks that nobody ever told me. And now I'm just passing the information on to you. And so this is where I bought Bitcoin. I had been in crypto for a while. I knew that the Bitcoin ETF was coming out. And the reason I bought Bitcoin at this time was because that was when the Bitcoin ETF was coming out. I've documented my little Bitcoin ETF experiment on this channel and my buy prices. I talked about why I was buying. I talked about what I was buying. I only bought the Fidelity F Bitcoin ETF, and that released right around here in, where is it? February 2024, right? Somewhere around like right here, the Bitcoin ETF came out, I think, right? February, March 2024. And over this time period, I started buying the Bitcoin ETF. Now, what had happened is I started buying a little bit in this section, but I made the decision to do a really big double down on this day right here, somewhere in here in like mid to late 2024, as Bitcoin was starting to come out of this area. I didn't even really know it at the time. But what was happening is Bitcoin's forming this cup and handle pattern. The reason I bring this up is because the same thing looks to be happening on the Bitcoin chart today. And I think a lot of people can make a lot of money by taking advantage of this Bitcoin move and how it is playing with another cup and handle pattern. This is going to become more apparent as we switch over to the daily chart here in a minute. But basically over the last year, I made 100% return. My dad made 155% return. My brother made like 115% return, all because we just bought Bitcoin and didn't do anything else. And while I think that's not going to be the case forever, I think that that might be the case with what Bitcoin's doing here today. And you could very easily get a 20% to 50% portfolio return by just buying Bitcoin as it breaks through this key level of about $109,000, $110,000. On the daily chart, let me show you here what I did back in 2024 without even really realizing it. Is this cup and handle formed, and I was buying Bitcoin as it was moving through this cup and handle pattern. I was doubling down. I was dollar cost averaging on my Bitcoin position because I knew Bitcoin was going up, right? I knew we were in the 4-year cycle. I knew the ETFs were a good thing. I saw the inflows. I knew I wanted to be in either BlackRock or Fidelity's ETF. And I knew that the market cycle was going to continue. That's partially what I still think is happening. I still think altcoins will get there a day in this cycle. It might just be taking a little bit longer. And I think this cycle might be replicating more 2017 compared to 2021 and 2013. But regardless of that, you can find this pattern right here out in the crypto world 100 times. You can take advantage of it 100 times for these 40% moves. This is a 40% move from where I kind of was buying Bitcoin to where it is today. And now it is starting to kind of get above that even higher. And so in this area right here, you can see we have a cup and handle pattern on Bitcoin. This being the cup, this being the handle. And just as it breaks through, you can buy the Bitcoin right here and make this giant level of profit. Now, if you bought Bitcoin right here at about $70,000, over that day, it rode it up to around 74,000. it came back down to around 67,000, you would have had a good spot to limit your risk reward. And so what happens here is, what I'm suggesting you do is buy Bitcoin as it breaks out of the cup and handle and limit your downside as much as you can. So if you say this breakout occurs on this day, you buy Bitcoin at 71,000. Well, your risk is only about 10% at the most, or it really only went to about 7% depending on your buy point. But Bitcoin was holding this really key level here. On the daily chart, we want to have the 150-day and the 50-day and the 200-day. Bitcoin was holding this 50-day moving average as it was breaking out, limiting the downside only to about 5 to 10%. Now, most people can take a 5 to 10% loss on their investment if it were to go south. And so that is what I'm talking about when you're limiting your risk. But regardless of all that, I doubled my Bitcoin by basically coming in here and buying throughout the cup and handle on a weekly chart. That's all I was really using back then, is a weekly chart, using a 30 and 40 week moving average. And as Bitcoin came up against this cup and handle, you could simply have bought and made this giant move. Now, I was buying throughout the whole cup. I didn't really fully understand that at the time. But using the 30 and 40 week moving average, you could have also bought down here. You could have bought down here. You could have bought right here. And you could be taking a giant amount of profit as Bitcoin breaks through these levels. So taking that information, right? How did I do that? How did I move $8,000 and $16,000 by just using Bitcoin? Well, the same thing is playing out here today. On Bitcoin, we have a cup and handle, and you can see how this move right here really is mirroring this move right here. Bitcoin had this giant wick to a new all-time high. Well, look back here, it kind of had this giant wick, right? It's moving up against this resistance on the cup and handle. It's kind of moving up against this resistance on the cup and handle. That means that over the next week or 2 or 3 or 4, we could see this big breakout of Bitcoin from about 109,000 to maybe 130,000, 120,000, right? Something along those lines. For reference, this past move out of the cup and handle was about 50%, right? I don't think Bitcoin's going to continue to make 50% move after 50% move. Like back here in this cup and handle, Bitcoin did about a 138% move before it really started to break down again. So Bitcoin is going to continue to keep doing these cup and handles, it looks like, and every time the returns are diminishing a little, all I'm telling you is that I was buying right here in 2024 simply because that is when the ETF came out, right? I had been in crypto before, but I wanted to experiment with the ETFs, and it was just happened to be in this cup and handle. Well, turns out that right now we are happening to be in this cup and handle as well, and Bitcoin is kind of repeating the same pattern in 2025 that it did in 2024. What does that mean for you, and what does that mean for me? I'm still holding my Bitcoin position. I haven't sold it yet. Hopefully the profits are going to keep going, right? That's what I think is going to happen. This is what I'm watching and how I'm going to decide when to sell. So the big thing that we want to see as Bitcoin's moving up is it maintains this 30-week moving average, right? That is the key of bullishness. Above the 30-week is bullish. You can see down here, Bitcoin will have a close below the 40, but that next week will close back above that 40-week moving average. Down here, Bitcoin never closed below the 40-week moving average. And so what we're seeing today is a beautiful bullish move by Bitcoin where it is above the 30-week moving average. It's above the 40-week moving average. It's breaking all-time high, and to me, that means that this cup and handle has a high potential to break out and continue the move higher. Now, how much higher, and how do we know when to get out of the position, right? So what I would look at here is about a 20 to 25% move. That's just kind of an arbitrary number as to where I'm pretty comfortable with taking my profit, just because I don't know how much higher Bitcoin can go forever. A 20% move would kind of put Bitcoin up here at around $135,000. So that's probably where I'm going to look to sell my Bitcoin, is around $135,000 per Bitcoin, depending on how the market cycle plays out and how kind of things seem to be progressing. The other thing I'm watching out for is a double top. Is Bitcoin going to double top here? And is it going to come back to the 30-week moving average and break below it and break below the 40? If that were to happen, I would instantly liquidate all of my Bitcoin for as much profit as I could, probably make about 75% return instead of 105% return, something like that. The other scenario that could happen is Bitcoin could drop down here to the 30 before breaking up to about $120,000, $130,000. And so we could see a little retrace again, for Bitcoin against this 30-week moving average, especially as America is starting to put tariffs on the EU, right? That could have a little bit of turmoil in the market. But what we want to see here What I really think is going to happen is Bitcoin's forming another cup and handle, going to break out to the upside around $130,000, $140,000, maybe $125,000. You should consider taking some profit off of the table while you have the ability to, because what Bitcoin's been doing this whole cycle, cup and handle, breakout, and retrace, cup and handle, breakout, and retrace. And you can see how the retraces are getting deeper. See this retrace, not so deep, this retrace pretty deep, this retrace getting deeper, and then the pumps are getting smaller. So this is 130% return, this is like 55% return, the next one maybe it's like 20, 30, 40% return, and will not be able to keep going on forever. So that's honestly what I would look at on Bitcoin in order to make the most money that you possibly can. Let's look at it on a daily chart again real quick. You can see here Bitcoin, beautiful cup and handle. Again, this is your opportunity to buy on a daily chart. You want to use 50-day moving average right here. This is your opportunity to buy as the 50-day comes above the 200-day and Bitcoin's above the 50-day. And then the same thing's going on right here. And I think that could be very helpful to a lot of people's portfolios. And then you can take that profit that you make and flip it into Ethereum, flip it into Cardano, flip it into whatever else is doing this kind of same move. The last thing that I think, and price predictions are really not like the best thing, right? Like they're not like this crazy thing that you can do to always be right. But there is a trend-based Fibonacci extension that you can do that I think has been a little bit helpful at kind of figuring out where tops and bottoms are going to be. And you can go like this, you can go like this, and you can bring this across here. And this is going to show us where Bitcoin could kind of top out this cycle. So on previous cycles, Bitcoin would get to 3 and then we get to 2. I think that somewhere in this cycle, Bitcoin's going to fall between the 1.618 at 125,000 and the 2.618 between 190,000. And so we could probably expect Bitcoin to get up here to around 130, 140, 150,000 before it tops out this cycle. And that is where I will be planning to sell my Bitcoin based on just this kind of conglomerate of the information that we have. This is exactly how I made a little over 100% return so far. Right now, I haven't taken that profit, but I will be looking to take that profit. If at any point in time, Bitcoin breaks below the 40-week moving average right here, I will go ahead and take all my profit. We know that it did come down here a couple months ago, but it did not fully break down and it did not close below for like 2 or 3 weeks, failing to get above. What would happen if that were to happen? Bitcoin would probably come down here, test something down here, and then come back up and test again before getting rejected. If that happened, go ahead and sell and take your profit as Bitcoin gets rejected. That's exactly what I think is going on with Bitcoin. That's how I made a 100% return over the last year, doing nothing except buying Bitcoin, and how I think you can possibly do the same over the next couple of weeks and months, although Bitcoin will not probably double in that short time frame. If you're still watching the video, I appreciate it. Down in the description, we have the Crypto 100X Blueprint. We talk a lot about stuff like this. If you're interested in that, go ahead and join us down there. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like and a subscribe, and we'll definitely see you in the next one.